Hi, I'm Fred Schultz, and I'm running for president. I want to talk to you for about one thing tonight. Peace. It's time for peace tonight. It's time for peace in our nation. It's time for peace in our world. Let's start out with a little concept here on the peaceful protest sign behind me. No victim, no crime. Fred for prez. Get it? No victim, no crime. Fred for prez. And I will show you the other side of the poster. Free the 2 million. Who are those 2 million, you ask? Those are the 2 million people in our jails every moment, every day, for victimless crimes. That does not mean nonviolent crimes, although most of them are. I mean, we're talking victimless crimes. I mean, in other words, theft has a victim, yes. What we're talking about is victimless crimes. That means drug possession, drug sales, sex work, buying sex, gambling. Look, our nation was founded for one reason: to protect our God-given freedoms, to do whatever we want as long as we're not hurting anyone else. And there's another reason our nation was founded. It was to get out of the oppression under the British Crown and to really, as Thomas Paine promised us, to make us all rich. And then we were supposed to be a light unto the world and to make the whole world free and to make the whole world rich. Now, that's how it is. That was, it was in the Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine was the writer who inspired the revolution. I mean, everybody was reading him every day. Him. I was going to say and Jefferson, but he was the popular one. He really was. I mean, and Jefferson, he was well loved, as of course, Franklin. But let's get to a few quotes. First of all, Paine talked about having a 10 to 20% tax on the wealthiest people, voluntary, but a 10 to 20% tax on the wealthiest people so the rest of us could survive. And he wanted to have jobs for everyone and a guaranteed minimum income, especially even if there weren't enough jobs. Second of all, as I said, he talked about everybody being rich. And finally, there was Jefferson's quote in his only book saying, "The legitimate powers of government extend only to such acts as are injurious to others." In other words, if we're not hurting someone, the government has no right to fuck with us. Now, as far as this whole, there was some violence last night and the night before in Charlottesville, North Carolina. I was very sad about that. It's horrible, but it was mostly some looting, and that's horrible too, but very few people. It looks like one person was shot, and we don't know who did that. It might have been a protester, as the police say. It might have been the police. We don't know. We have to wait for the forensic tests. But what is clear is that every year during arrests, 700 people are killed. Every year, 4,000 people die in jail. Most of the people in our jails are arrested for victimless crimes. That means they're unconstitutional. They violate our human rights, our God-given rights to life, and the Bill of Rights. In other words, our constitutional rights, our right to life, our right to liberty, our right to the pursuit of happiness, our right not to be slaves, our right to vote. 7 million people, because they've been arrested, mostly for victimless crimes, can't vote. We have 240 million people in this country. 120 million of them did not vote in the last election. Half. Why? Because these crimes now call more than half of us, probably 3/4 of us, criminals. When you combine that with mass surveillance, which they now have, then you have the possibility of everybody, or 3/4 of the people in our nation, being arrested. So, what is the solution? We stick with the Constitution. We stick with the rules written out by our nation's founding mothers and fathers. That means, number one, no victim, no crime. In other words, If I'm not hurting someone, you don't have a right to arrest me. That means, number 2, you want to do a search of my home or my person, you need a warrant, unless you witness me committing a crime. That doesn't mean you can look at me and say, oh, he looks like a suspicious figure. No. Either if you have a report of, I match somebody's description who's just committed a crime, fine, but it can't be just, a vague description. It has to be something specific. Second of all, and this is another big issue, even of those people committed for real crimes, a large percentage of them were committed under the use of witness ID, witness identification. Turns out witness identification is the least accurate form of identification, often wrong. It's very easy to make a mistake, especially looking at two people who have look similar, but also on top of that, when the police show you a lineup, they say, which of these people did it? They don't say, the person who did the crime might or might not be in these pictures. Also, another way is, instead of just showing people a list of photos together and saying which of these looks most like that person, what they should do is show them individual photos in a row. That lessens the chances. Finally, we need to stop all of this wrongful entrapment. I mean, when they say, we've caught 20 terrorists recently, 20 potential terrorists, that's through entrapment. They haven't caught them in the act of doing a crime. No. They meet somebody and mentally unstable, and they say, hey, wouldn't you like to bomb somebody? And they say, yeah. Well, here's a bomb. Oh, thank you. Boom, you're in jail for the rest of your life. That's how they do it. They say that's the only way they can catch people. Well, then they're not catching the right people. They're catching potential criminals, not actual criminals. There's a difference. The difference is you catch somebody doing a crime. Now, as far as this mass surveillance goes, it is ridiculous. They have no right to tap us, to follow us, unless they have a warrant. You can't get a warrant unless you have probable cause of committing a crime. It means they can't just do this mass data collection. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. Say, we have to catch these ISIS people. They're doing such a great job of recruiting online. No! You know what's doing the great job of recruiting online? You, the U.S. government, because the more we kill overseas, the more people overseas and in our nation is going to want to kill us here. It's just how it goes. You spread war, you get war on you. You spread peace and love, you get peace and love on you. We are the wealthiest nation in the world. Well, what should we do with that wealth? We don't have to buy bombs and guns and send our troops overseas, 700 bases, spending $170 trillion a year on war. That's ridiculous. We need to, number 1, bring all our troops home. Number 2, repurpose our police to protecting us from attacking us. Number 3, arm all of our citizens so that we can be protected. And yes, we need to ban these assault weapons, but the main cause of crime is not these assault weapons. The same number of people that were killed in Sandy Hook are killed every day on our streets. About 20, 30 people killed a day on our streets. Why? About 20. Why? Because drug prohibition causes crime. When alcohol prohibition was enacted, the crime rate doubled. When they ended it, it fell in half. Now the crime rate is back down to around where it was around after it fell, after prohibition ended. But still, we have 20 people dying every day on the streets. That is 20 too many. We need to stop these victimless crimes. Stop this drug prohibition, and crime will go away. Yes, if you elect me, I will end these unconstitutional crimes day one. Day one, I will enforce the Constitution. And day one, I will stop these wrongful arrests. How many? Well, we arrest about 15 million people a year. I will stop approximately 13 or 14 million arrests. I'll only arrest the guilty people who have hurt somebody. Number 2, I will pardon all the people who have not hurt anyone, and including pardoning everybody who was wrongfully convicted. We're talking about 70 million people out of, say, 75 million convictions, maybe 80 million. Number 3, and I'll give them back their right to vote. Number 3, As I said, end all these overseas wars, bring everybody home. Number 4, have economic development here and abroad. That means, number 1, we'll create 50 million new jobs, rebuilding our infrastructure, having free internet for everyone. Yes, we need to build borders on both walls, but if you go in just to protect, us from having terrorists coming in, we have to know who's coming in. But you don't go and try to evict everybody who's an illegal immigrant. Number 1, many of them are refugees from this drug war. Number 2, they need, if not, they're here for they're fleeing for economic poverty. So how do we fix that? Yes, we need to spread the wealth around the world. The wealthiest 1% worldwide need to be taxed. Wealthiest 1% in our nation own 45% of our nation's wealth. The wealthiest 10% of our nation owns 70% of our nation's wealth. The wealthiest 400 people have the same money as the poorest 150 million people in our nation. We need to have jobs for everyone, and those who don't have jobs need a guaranteed minimal income. Worldwide, we need to make sure that nobody is starving. We have 50 million people starving in our nation, and 1 billion people starving worldwide. Worldwide, 22,000 children die every day. 22,000 children die every day of starvation. That is a crime. We need to end homelessness. How? You don't build shelters. That's bullshit. You can't even have a family. You can't have a life, anything. You give everybody a small free apartment who can't afford one. Everyone. And you make it easy for them to move them, hopefully they're portable, to wherever the jobs are. That is simple. But we have to recognize with all the automation, there might not be enough jobs for everyone. That's just a simple fact. The world population has gone in the last 200 years from 1 billion to 7 billion, and it could double again in the next, 20, 30 years. Who knows? 100 years at least. I mean, look. Combination of poverty and these victimless crimes is causing lots of people to go to jail. And yes, we have police killing us on the streets every day. Killing us. Disproportionately, the darker skin you have, the more you're likely you are to be killed. But still, you have innocent people killed of all skin colors every day. And enough already. The police have to make killing somebody a last resort, not a first resort. They need to, and then second of all, they need to, they need to start. In law school, we were taught about police discretion and prosecutorial discretion. They don't teach that in police academies, but police have a right and a responsibility not to arrest you if they believe that the crime in question is either immoral or shouldn't be a crime or is a lesser crime than, is important to arrest you for. They have a right not to arrest you. That's just how it is. And they also have a right and a responsibility to protect our human rights. Guaranteed by our Constitution and by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that the U.S. and most nations of the world signed 50 years ago, written by Eleanor Roosevelt. So they have to adhere to national and international law and, protect our human rights. That means not arresting you if you're not hurting someone. And, again, prosecutorial discretion, same thing. They should not prosecute you unless you are breaking a real law, not an illegal, unconstitutional law. Number 3, there's something called jury nullification. It's a right of jurors and a responsibility of jurors not to convict you, to vote not guilty instead of guilty, if they believe the law in question is illegal or immoral, or as applied would be illegal or immoral. And that's just how it is. Any juror has that right. It used to be a requirement that the judge and the lawyers tell you of that, but now, the last 100 years, the judge is not even allowed to tell you of it. Why? They just want you to know your rights, but they're not allowed to tell them you know them or they throw you off the jury. It's crazy. It's a crazy, illegal, immoral system that has emerged. But there's a simple way to overcome it. Jury nullification. Even Justice Scalia and Justice Breyer a few years ago spoke out in favor of this, especially Scalia. Anyway, my point is, the more we spread love, the more love comes back to us. The more we spread hate and violence, the more that's going to come back to us. So let's focus on spreading love. Same thing with peaceful protests. It's not weak, it's strong to have peaceful protests. That doesn't mean we just put up with getting beaten and tortured and physically maimed and abused. No. Speaking of physically maimed, our troops are getting physically maimed and murdered every day overseas. They walked into an ambush. What happened was 9/11. Yes, some thousands of 3,000 people were horribly murdered by bin Laden and his gang, but that was a gang. It was a gang. It wasn't a nation. It was a gang. They weren't even from Afghanistan, the nation we attacked in retaliation. Yeah, they had an acre of land there that they were letting them use for calisthenics and target practice. Big deal. So instead of invading a nation, you bomb them there first without telling anyone. That's how you do it. That's all we had to do. And then find bin Laden. By the way, I guessed 10, 15 years ago where he was. I was 100 miles off. I said he was probably in the Kashmiri mountains of Pakistan. He was 100 miles away in Abbottabad. Anyway, we made a mistake responding to 9/11 with a war, and I'm the only candidate who stood against and fought against that war and blogged. And number two, I marched and blogged against the war in Iraq, knowing that was even more wrongful or more wrongful. Equally wrongful. Look, the response to war and hate, we had and still have a wonderful opportunity to say, look, these psycho Muslim terrorists are about hate. We are about love. They are a tiny percentage of all Muslims. They are a tiny percentage of all humans. At the time that they did 9/11, the number involved in the gang was probably, around 100. When they caught bin Laden, he had like a few guards, way under 100. I thought he'd have over 100. He had under 100. Anyway, my point is, the proper response was not war. Our troops have not only killed over 1 million people in Iraq, and we don't know how many in Afghanistan, but we've lost 7,000 troops. 2.5 million of our troops have fought overseas. 500,000 to 1 million have injuries, including physical and mental and brain injuries. We're probably talking about 1 million. About 1 million of our troops have permanent disabling injuries. They walked into an ambush, is what I'm trying to say. This was an ambush. He was trying to get our troops to respond this way. He was trying to ramp up some war between Islam and Christianity, and Bush took him up on it, and within a few days of 9/11 said, oh, the Crusades are on again. The Crusades are on again. Oh, and then he said, oh, well, I mean against the bad Muslims. Well, look, once you say the Crusades are on again, and then you go and kill hundreds of thousands of people, look, Hillary says she wants to kill the bad ones, but only with bombs. Trump says he wants to send 30,000 troops to Iraq. We already have 5,000 troops in Iraq and 10,000 in Afghanistan. Enough already. Enough. We fought in these wars for 15 years. We've gotten nowhere. 15 years. 15 years. That's way longer than World War I and World War II combined. Enough already. The more we fight, the more they want to kill us here. Whether it's by the way, James Comey, the director of the FBI, said the other day that if we wipe out ISIS overseas, that there's going to be the largest outspread of terrorists running for their lives from there here to kill us, both to Europe and here. Enough already. Also, the more we kill people over there, the more we're going to inspire crazy Muslims to kill us here. The more we spread love, the more that they will love us back. The more we say we're about love, the more they will love us. The more we spread love and prosperity and freedom. We're supposed to be a beacon of freedom. You don't make somebody free by killing them or maiming them. You make them free by giving them love and hopefully giving them the resources to have a job and not die of disease. Billions of people live on under $2 a day. In other words, for under $1 trillion, we could feed most people in the world who are starving every year. My tax plan calls for taxing the wealthiest 1% of our nation with a net worth over $6 million, whether it's people, individuals, or businesses, small percentage of net worth so the rest of us can live, so we can have free housing for the homeless, free food for the starving. Did you know that people on food stamps live on $1.41 per meal? That's called starvation. And just now they're starting to cut millions of people off of the food stamp rolls just the last few months. That's going to lead to mass crime. And now they're starting to add new drugs to these DEA. They kratom, it's called. It's some herb. It's not a drug. It's some herb that gets people to leave opiates. Now they're banning that. Why? Because I don't know. Because people like it. You know what the number one deadly addictive recreational drug is? Sugar. Sugar. kills over 36 million people a year. It's responsible for over 60% of the deaths worldwide. You know how many people all illegal drugs kill worldwide? 200,000. So you're talking 200,000 versus 36 million. Can't even do the math, but it's way under 1%. You know what percentage of illegal drugs we're interdicting per year? Way under 1%. This war on drugs is a failure. You're arresting millions of people to prevent 20,000 people from accidentally killing themselves. You're going to say, oh, well, what if they drive? Well, you know how you prevent that? Yeah, we have 40,000 deaths per year in cars. You don't end that by having self-driving cars. That's ridiculous. Have you ever heard of hacking? Have you ever heard of the fact that computers can't drive as well as people? Yes, you can have them take over if somebody's falling asleep at the wheel, God forbid. But besides that, have you ever heard of hacking? Hacking? Every computer in the world has been hacked. What happens if a terrorist hacks all the cars in the world? We all die. It's crazy. I can see having a car take over if you've fallen asleep at the wheel and about to kill somebody. Besides that, forget it. But how do we prevent these deaths at the wheel every year? Not by arresting 1 million people. You know how many people are arrested for drinking and driving a year? 1 million. You know how many people drink and drive a year? 131 million times people drink and drive a year. You know what percentage of Americans drink and drive per year? 20%. You're not going to stop you're arresting people who aren't a danger, and you're still getting 10,000 people killed a year by drinking and driving, and another 30,000 people killed, 20 or 30,000 people killed just for falling asleep at the wheel, not due to drugs. How do you stop this? Simple. Install breathalyzers in every car. That's simple. Now, as far as preventing people from driving when they're tired, look, yeah, I guess we do need something to take over if people fall asleep at the wheel, God forbid. A good friend of mine's wife and one daughter was killed falling asleep at the wheel without any drink or drugs. Anyway, okay, I love you all. Remember, jury nullification, police discretion, and peaceful protest. And let's bring the troops home now and spread love, peace, and prosperity in our nation and world. Peace leads to peace, love leads to love, and war leads to war. So let's spread some love. Okay, love party. Write in Fred for Prez. Oh, and listen, please make this go viral. Tell all your friends, and tell the pollsters. But if I am not up in the polls in the last day or two before the election, yes, I will throw it to Hillary. Even though it pains me, I will. We need to have, because she's, horrible, but still, she supported all these victimless crimes. She supported the 94 crime bill that led to millions of wrongful arrests, tens of millions of people having a wrongful record, and never being able to vote or get a job again. Most of these police interactions and killings on the streets by police. And by the way, most of the crime on our streets is caused by this drug prohibition too. So what are we going to do about addiction? Yes, we need to have free treatment for everyone and even free drugs if necessary. But enough of this fighting and crime, murder, robbing. It's all due to these, not guns, but to the drug prohibition. So it's time to end it now. Our founders had the right idea. They were geniuses. Now let's listen to them for once. Oh, and as far as parties, you don't have to be in a party. George Washington, in his farewell address, he cautioned against two things: against being involved with overseas wars and alliances, although he said to stick with your friends, but he was against most alliances and certainly overseas wars if at all possible. And although we do want to stick by our allies, but he was against overseas wars, if at all possible. And also he was against parties. So don't let them tell you, oh, you're not on the ballot? You're not in one party or another? Well, you didn't pay enough people to get on the ballots. Fuck that noise. We have write-in. That's why they allow write-in. 46 of the 50 states have write-in. Exercise your right and write in. Please spread this. Give the 120 million people who aren't registered to vote a reason to register. Register tomorrow and please vote for Fred and run for office yourself either as a write-in or hopefully soon we'll get the love party going. We encompass all the parties. Now, as George Washington also said, parties are ridiculous and they're horrible and they're going to kill our democracy. So let's stop all this party bullshit and get down to business. Vote for Fred. Write in. And let's make it, please, viral now so we can save millions of lives and get millions of people out of slavery and jail and get billions of people out of starvation and towards being productive, joyous, loving people instead of in pain and oppressed and killed. And enough already. Okay, love you all. Thank you for all you do. Make it go viral, please. Save your own life. And fuck Trump. Fuck them all. Save your life. Vote for Fred. Love party. Woo! Love you. Talk to you soon. Bye.